Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Shay Ali here with you on Inspired Online. And this afternoon, I've got for you the lovely Laz Jefferson. Now, Laz is originally from California, but he joins me today to speak about, well, let's tell you how we met, actually. We met in the Tony Robbins environment, and I finally had the guts to go to one of the big Tony events, Date with Destiny, back in 2010. And Laz was the beautiful man that was supporting my team. And not only did he do that, but I was in a bit of a funny place in my own life. And I will never forget what he did. And, it's like some visualization techniques that he did with me. We don't have to talk about what the issue was. But just someone who was just very kind, very wise, very incisive. And goodness me, the help that I needed in that moment, he delivered. And forget that. It was wonderful. And so we've struck up a friendship ever since then, really. And currently he works with breath work and sharing that with people, as well as his magnificent coaching techniques. So it's my pleasure and joy to welcome you to Inspired Stage today and to share you with our audience. So I'm going to ask with our first question, start with our first question even. If you had to share your wisdom with the world in a nutshell, what would you say?
That's like the easiest question I've ever been asked. No. If I had to, so you said you were going to ask me that question, and every time I come up with a different answer, of course, because wherever I am in that moment in time is my wisdom is different, or at least my perception is different. And that's the key thing, is that our perception as humans, our perception of the world, our perception of ourselves, our perception of our place in the world, and the interaction between those two is changing all the time. And really, it's people don't like to hear it, but it's just a story, and it's a story of our own creation. And that's not to minimize the things that have happened to people. Yes, things happen in the world. People have challenges of health, of finances, of relationships. Lots of things that happen to us in our world is an interplay between our internal frame of reference for that and then the external of what happens. But ultimately, the story that we create around what happens is of our own making. And that's hard for some people to accept, so to speak. But it's like, why do you have a good day one day and then a bad day the next? We were speaking earlier, Shay, about like with this quarantine and the lockdown, and it's a roller coaster. Nothing has changed. Nothing has changed. I mean, I'm in Colombia right now, and the restrictions in Colombia are pretty severe. I don't know if they're as severe as Italy was at the height, but anyway, it's pretty severe. And there are days that I'm really frustrated. Yeah. And I'm really bored. And I just want to sit on the sofa and watch bad TV. I don't want to take a self-improvement course. I don't want to take that photography course. I don't want to take all there's never been a time where there's so much to learn on the internet. And yet there are a lot of times that I don't feel like that. And then there are other times where I'm fine. And I'm like, oh, let's take the dog out for a walk, which I do every day, but some days it's fine and some days it's not. And, really, I think it's because of the background story that's going on in my head. And I think that when you talk about, as coaching, one of my biggest go-tos in the coaching world, and what I use is, what meaning are you giving this? And why are you choosing that meaning? And, sometimes that's very confrontational to people because they don't want to say, well, what do you mean choosing the meaning? No, I'm telling you what happened. And yet really it's the it's all in the meaning that we give to things that determine what happens.
What happens with my emotion laced all into it.
100%.
How do we create a story? Let's just start with that basic. How are we creating stories?
So let's begin with the premise that life is chaotic. There's a lot of chaos in the world.
Yeah.
Just as a given. I mean, quantum science and the physicists have now determined that the only way for them to explain what is oftentimes unexplainable, but that's their job, is trying to explain the unexplainable,
Yeah.
is by adding chaos theory. And if you, as soon as they throw the chaos theory into their investigations, things seem to be more explainable. So life is chaotic and the world is chaotic and there's a randomness to everything. But so something happens, and then the challenging part about the chaos theory is that humans don't like chaos. We hate chaos. So one thing we want to do more than anything is like chase that certainty in the Tony Robbins world, chase that, okay, this is what I know to be true. I know this to be true, so it's okay. As long as what I know to be true is true, then I can move forward. But if it's just chaotic, then what's the point, right? Mm-hmm. So when things happen that oftentimes are chaotic, we then want to explain, oh, well, that's, we put some meaning. So let's say, and even we start when we're 2 and 3 years old. We're 2 and 3 years old, and we're la 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 la, mommy, why? And mom like, will you shut up? I'm sure there's a lot of this is going on right now during the quarantine, right? Yeah. Parents are not only 24/7 parents, but they're also, teacher and friend and everything else. Yeah. So, it'll be interesting to see what happens with these 2, 3, 4, 5-year-olds that have spent, now 6 weeks. Hopefully it won't be that much longer, but it will be a while. Yeah. And they're going to try to bring meaning into a very chaotic situation and something very different from what they've experienced before. So mom and dad are going to get frustrated. Mom and dad are going to have a reaction, and the kid is going to usually say, because they're the center of not only their world but of the universe, and it's about them. It's not that mom and dad are stressed because of the quarantine. It's about there's something wrong with them. So they're going to say, oh my God, my mommy doesn't love me the way I thought she did, or I didn't do that well and mommy got mad, so I'm not good enough. And so mom is just going to have a moment, a human moment, and the kid is going to start, even right back then, creating a story of what it means. It has to mean something about ourselves, usually. Yeah. And unfortunately, oftentimes it means that there's something wrong with us. And then that's how the story happens. I was going to say, I've been reading Gay and Katie Hendricks, who are relationships experts. And I'm sure you're familiar with them. And
yes, beautiful.
I must have said something to Alexa, or I don't know what happened, but all of a sudden they're all over my Facebook feed, having never seen them before. But I know I mentioned Gay's name on something, and now all of a sudden they're all over my Facebook. But anyway, what they're saying is, like, in relationship, if you're having a problem with your partner, it's never about them. No. It's always about something within yourself.
Indeed.
So
that makes a lot of sense. So leading on from that, there's 2 aspects to the next question is, one, how can you create a better story? Or how can we create a better story in our lives? And 2, when you're that little child, if you're looking after your 5-year-old right now, who's creating all sorts of goodness knows what kinds of stories, how can we help the child create better stories?
That's a great question. And I think with the child, let me start with that, because that's where you ended. And it's a catch-22. I don't have children, so I'm not, I have nephews. But I've seen, I don't want to say this. So when I was growing up, love was very much conditional. There was really I don't need to get in my story, but love is conditional, and it could be taken away, and it was used as a weapon and a carrot and a stick, which is not unusual at all. And so my sister, in her efforts to counteract that with her own children, she loves her children unconditionally, and she lets them know that all the time. And I think we're seeing that more and more. Our parents, who were raised and for me it was, the 40s and 50s, were very much about, external, oh, you need to look good for the neighbors. It's everybody's putting on a show to let the world know how well adjusted they are. And you never air your dirty laundry in public or anything like that. So we're all playing a game that we're all, the Cleavers, which is an American TV reference, which you may or may not know, of Leave It to Beaver. But so now I think what's happened is that we've gone to the other extreme, right? And now there's the participation ribbons. There's nobody, all the children get a ribbon because they participated, and they're all loved, and they're all precious, and they're all important. And, now we kind of bemoan, I don't know what generation it is now, X, Y, or Z. These kids, we say, oh my God, these kids are so entitled. What do they think? They just think things magically happen, and they're not going out there and working as hard as we had to work, and their expectations are so high. Well, yeah, because we've almost swung in the opposite direction. Yeah. And, you're precious. You're so precious. You're just wonderful, and there's nothing you can do that's wrong. So, I think the best we could do is to be honest.
What, with your kids?
I mean, in their language, but I mean, yes, I love you, and you didn't even get third place, not even, but you didn't get first place or second place or third place, and that's okay. It doesn't mean I don't love you, but do we put the whole 20-person competition on the lectern to receive the ribbons? I don't know.
And I like your use there of the word "and." It was like you didn't, rather than using the word "but" in your original sentence, you went to "and," which is a lovely neutralizing way to do it.
Yeah. Yes. No. Referencing Tony's work, Tony did not come up with this thing, but it's called the agreement frame. And the agreement frame is that you'd never use the word "but," because anything that I say before the word "but," and then I use the word "but," I've negated everything that came before it. So if I say, oh my gosh, Shay, you're looking lovely today, and your hair is so wonderful, but you've got something right there between your teeth, which you don't have. But what do you hear? You don't hear, oh, I love you, you're beautiful, your hair is great. You hear there's something between your teeth. Yeah. And you might make up a story that either about me, that I'm hypercritical, or I focus on what's wrong and not what's right, or make up a story about yourself that oh, no matter how much I work to make myself look beautiful and presentable, they're still going to see the sunflower seed in my tooth.
Yeah. So going back to the stories and the creation of stories, so we talked about children and how you might help them create a better story or an empowering story. But how do you do that as an adult? I mean, I might have been living a tragedy. I haven't, but let's just say, for example, if I had to compare my story to a movie genre, it's a tragedy right now. How do I change it from a tragedy to like a rom-com or I don't know, or something else?
Yeah. So first of all, I would coach you to look at what beliefs you're holding on to about yourself or about your circumstances, and what that means. What are those beliefs that have you living a life of tragedy versus living a life that is going to support you, not hold you back. And oftentimes what I want to say, this is a nugget here. It's not, and now I lost it. It's not the circumstances that are making your life a tragedy. It's the meaning that you're giving what has happened. You can use a terrible situation of like rape, or a family member being murdered, right? There are people who are going to take both of those tragic situations and either make it about themselves and about their fault and what's wrong with them and what they did to cause it, and take responsibility for something that was out of their control oftentimes. Or there's somebody who's going to just, what can I learn from this? Or do I so the one thing is I start with, what is your belief? What are you getting? Because there's always a win in everything we do. Always a win.
Mm.
And so if we're sitting around and focusing on the terribleness of our life, there's a win in that. And you can't, you're not going to be able to move from it more effectively unless you can figure out what you're getting from it in the first place.
Mm. Okay. Because it's always
So
serving, right? In some
it's
way.
always, life is always serving us, and even in ways that seem inconceivable of like, how is this terrible thing serving me? But it's, if you're holding on to it instead of moving beyond it, then it's something is serving you by holding on to it. So let's figure out what that is. And then once you get the like, oh my, the mirror is right here and you see it for what it is, then you can start to move beyond it, because then you can see, oh, I was feeling, I was connecting to myself, or it was making me feel special, or it, the story was allowing me to not have to work so hard in life, or whatever the situation is. Then you can say, okay, take a breath. How else can you get that feeling in a positive way rather than in a negative way? And understand also, I think that we, in the world of transformation of working with people have the expectation that once they have overcome something, it is now in the past and not a part of who they are, which is ridiculous. It's not going to go away. So it's not about thinking, now that I've what's the word I want? Oh my God, now that I've overcome this, or now that I've recognized this for what it is, now it doesn't have the power over me anymore, right? I mean, in the Dickens process, we say it all the time, right? You don't have the power over me anymore, which is true and fine, as long as you keep that in front of mind. But as soon as that leaves front of mind, that I take my power back, I'm not going to give my power to those things in the past, then it's going to creep back in. Right. But when and so just recognize that, because then when it does, instead of you saying, oh my God, it didn't work, it was a failure, oh, I fell for it in the moment, my life in 2 months didn't radically change, so that was fake, there was something about that experience that, Tony Robbins or Kyle Cease or Brendan Burchard or whoever it is out there, that you saw the possibility of a different life. And it didn't, and then the old life kind of crept back in. It's just a matter of realizing, oh, there you are. Hi, I see you. You're not the monster that you were, but you're still there. You're not the monster. You're a little mouse, but you can be a terrifying mouse.
Yeah, you can.
Even though you're smaller.
Yeah. And so how do you defeat the mouse? Well, how do you make it small in those, 3 months after the event?
Yeah. Okay. Great question. So just keeping me right on track. Okay. So it was a belief. You had limiting beliefs around a situation that were not serving you, other than to give you certainty, or to give you some meaning to what happened. So that's number one. So now you've had that for a long time. You realize it for what it is, and you've put it away. But it keeps showing up, and it's like, I'm not defeating the mouse. The mouse is still a lion, it's not a mouse.
Yeah.
So what you need to do is you need to create other beliefs that may be in direct, have a direct opposite of the original belief, or you have other beliefs that serve you in different ways. Right. And the way that we create a belief is we want to see something, and then we have to find evidence.
Yeah.
Right. So here's a story for me. So I was bullied in school, and so I wasn't comfortable around people. I always felt I had to prove myself, and I had to do something or be something in order to be accepted, because I had such lack of acceptance when I was younger. And it was working, but it was still holding me back. Those beliefs that there was something wrong with me, that people were, if they really knew who I was, they wouldn't like me, or they would, bully me as a human. So I had to make a decision that I wanted to experience something else. And what that meant is, when somebody gave me a compliment, Here's a good example. So somebody, a dear friend of mine who you don't know, Connie Osterholt, said to me once
Love Connie, of course.
that, says, wow, Laz, you have a really good speaking voice.
Mm.
Have you ever thought of doing voiceovers? And I'm like, no, that's crazy. What do you mean I have a good speaking voice? I hate my voice. Who loves their voice, right? Nobody who hears a recording of their voice first time says, oh, wow, I sound really great.
Well, you'd be a special kind of individual if you did.
So I could have, so maybe at that time I was like kind of threw away the compliment or threw away the feedback, let's say. And then I heard it again. I'm like, well, that's weird. I remember Connie had said that. And then instead of just dismissing people saying, oh, you're really good to, I enjoy being around you. I like hearing from you. It's so great to just hear you talk, whatever it is. I had to take those in instead of brushing them off. We've been raised that, oh, if you accept a compliment or if you really take it on, that's just going to give you a big head, and we don't want that. We want to be humble and modest, is what we're typically praised for. And so whatever belief it is that you want to create, probably there's an aspect of it that's true, and probably there's people that will confirm that for you, and maybe you need to really listen to what people are saying, and maybe you really need to listen to the good things that even you say for yourself, and maybe you even need to look back in your life and realize, oh, it was there all along, I just didn't see it because it was in conflict of who I believed I was. So it really takes, to answer your question directly, you need to create other beliefs that will support you and that will keep the mouse small. And you need to do that consciously. And so when the mouse does show up, those other beliefs that you've built up about yourself to counter that.
And as you said, keep your eyes open, because people will be, affirming that new belief that you choose for yourself. So it is perhaps a project that people can do at home right now. If you think, well, there's no one around, there's people around on Zoom, or there's your family around, or, you can find these affirmations anywhere. Or pick a page in a book, whatever, see it as a sign.
And just create new ones. I used to have, so when let's say somewhere we don't go anymore right now, the airport, right? So I go to the airport, and what do people do at the airport is they people watch. It's a great place for people watching, right?
Oh, it was.
And people show up in interesting costumes for their flight, that's for sure.
Yeah.
But anyway, so it used to be that when I saw somebody looking at me, I would immediately, oh, what's wrong? Why are they, they're looking at me because there must be something wrong with me. They're judging me. And I would come up with all of those types of self-explanations of why someone was just looking at me and they were doing nothing other than people watch. And then I changed that to, so I've been told that there are a couple famous people that I look like, that I resemble someone. And so I just changed my belief from there's something wrong with me to, oh, there must be trying to figure out what movie actor it is that I look like.
Oh, I love that. And you just reframe that in your head.
I just reframe it in my head. And then it's like, I do look like, you know who it is. It used to be Kiefer Sutherland. So I love Kiefer. I love you, but I'm happier with the other one.
We're being very tight-lipped about who that is. That's okay. Have a wild guess if you're watching this. Put your comments in the box and we'll tell you.
Who is it? Who is it?
Who is it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
headline, they're watching you because you're hot. That's it.
And I mean, and let's when I think of you, Shay, and I think that you're a perfect example of somebody at the airport that if you were walking by in your travel clothes, um, you're somebody that I would like go, oh my God, look at that woman. She is a style maven.
Nice.
No, but it's true. I mean, you always are wearing, I mean, that's also become your identity, right? That you're somebody with style, and that you're somebody that can pull off outfits that other people would only in their dreams hope to be able to wear, and with such confidence.
Thank you.
Right? And I mean, I'm sure that was intentional on your part, that you want to create a persona, or you want to represent the persona that's on the inside on the outside.
Yeah, it definitely was.
That was our dog barking. He never barked. Oh, there must have been somebody out there.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think it was more about, rather than playing it safe, which a lot of people would do, what can I get away with that would still look nice? I think.
Mm.
Yeah.
And so what is your win? What is your win in that? Isn't this great how I just turned it around now?
I know you're asking me questions now. I stand out,
Okay.
I used to be very shy, which is kind of well documented on some of these videos. So rather than having one-on-one interaction with people, I guess I wanted other ways to be noticed, where I didn't have to lead with, me having to say hi.
Mm.
So I guess in a real kind of deep subconscious way, it gives other people an excuse to talk to me, because suddenly it's about, where did you get that dress?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So you wanted to matter. You wanted to be a light.
Yes.
And at the time when you were younger and you were shy, you didn't feel confident to do it leading with your personality, which needed to get out because something happened when you were young that made you feel, ooh, it's not safe to let my personality be seen
I got
so blatantly.
Yeah.
And right. And so but you have this human nature that we all do, that we want attention. We want to be noticed. We want to know that we matter, that we take up space in the world. And you did that with clothes. And then I'm guessing that then, as that became an entree to then have conversations, that you built up a confidence, and you had evidence. You see, you built a new belief that you've got your own gifts to share, that you're funny and witty and smart, and have you're just a treasure trove of information and stories, that now you can lead with that.
Yeah.
And it's not scary.
Yeah.
And thank God you're not ready to give up the clothes, because that's doing a service to women and men around the world. Should be an example of what it's like to have confidence in dressing ourselves.
Well, I wouldn't say right now, because all I do is go out for groceries in clothes that I never would have thought I'd go out in. But aside from that, yes.
You've got a mask so no one can recognize you, right?
I've got a mask, I've got a hoodie. People do not recognize me.
Right there.
There you go.
Always have a mask and hands grip.
It has been such a joy to spend time with you, as it always is. And I was just wondering if you have any final thoughts for our audience that you'd like to share today.
Well, you mentioned the breath work, and it's interesting. We didn't get into that this time. Maybe we'll do another one just on the breath work. But it's so important to breathe, and breath. The word for spirit in Aramaic, which is the ancient language that Jesus actually spoke, and many other people besides Jesus, but at the language of the time before Greek and before Roman and all of that, was Aramaic. And the word for breath in Aramaic is pneuma. And the word for spirit in Aramaic is pneuma as well. So our breath is actually an access to spirit, and not necessarily the spirit up there, but the spirit within. And when we are in times of stress, like we are now oftentimes, our natural inclination as humans is to not breathe. And the lack of breathing or lack of full breath or and funny enough, what does COVID attack? But it attacks the lungs and our ability to breathe.
Yes.
So at this time, it's not about breathing deeply so you don't know if you have fibrosis or whatever, but at this time when you find yourself in moments of tightness, emotional tightness, just remember to take some breaths and reconnect to yourself, reconnect to the spirit within, to the source of who you are within. And the way to do that is just through breath. It doesn't have to be a big, long process. It doesn't have to be in front of your ritual at a place of your house. It could just be in line at the grocery store when you're sitting there waiting for your turn to be let in and you're stressed out, and just taking some calming breaths and reconnecting to that perfection within would be my parting words for this time.
Lovely. Well, thank you so much, and thank you for delighting our audience. If they'd love to get in touch with you, how can they do that?
Laz Jefferson at gmail.com is the easiest way. My name at Gmail. I also have Facebook Coaching with Laz, YouTube Coaching with Laz. So if Instagram Coaching with Laz, all that, social media platform stuff. So if all you remember is Laz and he did some coaching, you can find me that way too.
There you go. Super easy to find. We'll stick all those links on our Facebook page as well, facebook.com/inspired stage. Thank you very much for your time today. Sending you lots of love, and I hope to see you again in person very, very soon.
Absolutely. All the best, my dear. Take care.